what's called alt text when you insert an image. And what that is a bit of text that shows up if the image doesn't. And it's for exactly cases like this. If you can't read the hymn, there goes the text. And I think I'll have to figure out how to do that the next time around. I'm sorry, the printer app automatically kind of shrinks everything so it fits, so I'm trying to hymn. And of course, our technology is not working, but technology is wonderful until it isn't. That gets to be a real pain in the butt. It's summer, that's my excuse for everything. You know, some of my best experiences in ministry have been the ones that are the least expected. There was a time in seminary where I was going to Paladin class. That's the class where they teach you about the theology of the United Church of Christ and how the denomination works and the expectations for you as a UCC pastor. And so we're sitting in this class learning away, and here comes the conference minister for the Southeast Conference of the United Church of Christ, which includes Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. So this guy's always flying all over the place, and he doesn't have time just to stop by a class like this to say hello. So I'm thinking, what does this guy want? Well, sure enough, he knew of a church in suburban Atlanta whose pastor was going on sabbatical that summer. And he wanted to know if any of us would be interested in filling in for this guy. And as it happened, I did a summer job. And so I said, yes, I'll talk to them. And I did. I went out and had an interview with them, and they said, you'll do it. And they hired me for the summer. Now this is at a time when I thought I was going to go on and get a doctorate and teach in a seminary, not become a minister. But I got out there on my first day, and I started putting the bulletin together for the coming week. I sat down behind that desk and I thought, this just feels right. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so at that point, I changed course and set my face to becoming a minister. And you know what? It happened again when we were in Pennsylvania. I had left one church and I was kind of struggling to find another, and so I was working in an office. Jen was one of my bosses. That worked out great, didn't it? She said jump, and I said how high. I think everybody in that office did. And I was doing pulpit supply on the weekends, and I was going around. It's kind of, doing pulpit supply is kind of fun. You get to see a lot of different churches, meet a lot of different people. And so I went to visit this one church about 85 miles from where we were. And a couple of months later, I get this phone call from the president of their church council. And he says, we were yoked with this other church, and it kind of fell apart. And we can't afford to hire our own minister. What would you think about doing a long-term pulpit supply with us? And I said, okay. He went, okay, I'll do that. And the deal that I worked out with him was, I took one Sunday a month off, just so that drive wouldn't get to be a burden on me. And so 3 or 4 weeks out of the month, I was up there doing pulpit supply. Now get this. This church, this is the one that I like to talk about, is way out in coal country, in northeast Pennsylvania. Sort of between Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, if you know where those are. we were in Lancaster was, I don't know, maybe 200 feet elevation, something like that, if that. And where this place was 1,000, 2,000 feet. And so you would drive, and it felt like you were just going straight up, up into the hills. And the trees would start to change from pines and oaks into birch. And there was always this mountain breeze below. And up in that area, they had a lot of folks from of Greek heritage or from southeast Europe. And so you'd go up and there'd be these onion domes popping up on the churches here and there, and trout streams running down the hills. It is probably the single most beautiful area that I know of in the United States. And it was just this little town nestled in the middle of the hills. It was near some trailer where they have a coal fire that's been burning underground for decades. And Jen and I went there, and boy, you want to talk about a vision of hell, right? I mean, you're going, and there's an abandoned highway, and there's sulfurous gases kind of venting up through the abandoned concrete. And the whole, just about the whole place is wiped out. Empty houses, just a couple of sort of, I don't know how you describe it, run-down houses, and one Russian church left in that town. But it's beautiful, beautiful. And the people were so grateful to have a minister. We had, 13 people on the usual Sunday. On Easter Sunday, I think I counted 19 in the pews. And you think you're old. Great Googly movie. These people were in their 70s and 80s, and there was one family with children, one. When I left, I took them all out to lunch at a local diner. I just took that paycheck and said, okay, here we go. I'm taking you all out. They didn't like that idea. They didn't want me to pay for anything. It was one of the best, most affirming experiences I've ever had in ministry. And it convinced me, helped to convince me that I needed to get back in the game. And then it happened again. Just a few years ago. I left my church in Washington County. It was a bad experience there. And I was bitter and I was unemployed for like 2 years. I was studying web design and web development at Moraine Park. I was going to go into that field. Get out of ministry altogether, do something new. And then I get a phone call one night. And it's the president of Bethany, West Copeland. Some of you met him at the installation. And he says, our pastor left and we need an interim. Will you come and interview with us? And so I did. Went up there and sat down with them, and I felt like my ministry began with them that very first night. Because they had no idea what to do to get a new ministry. What the process was going to be for the search, what kind of developmental work they had to do. And so I just sat there and very patiently for about an hour, very patiently if I do say so myself, and said, you're going to need to do this, this, and this, and these are the kinds of things that you can expect are going to happen, and this is what you'll need to work through. And they said, you, come and be our intern. And so I said, goodbye, web development, goodbye, web design. I'm going back into ministry. And my wife said, you can make a lot more money on the web. We had to have that conversation, didn't we? She said, why don't you think about going back after you're done with this interim? And then I wound up here. And you know what? All of these things share is this sort of, unexpected but irresistible call. Somebody calls, and it's not just them. It's the Holy Spirit behind them saying, come, please be with us. Stay with us for a while. And the other thing they share is that they led me deeper into ministry. That first church, Pilgrimage, UCC, that was the church that really just brought me into ministry, convinced me that this is what I wanted to do. And those others, I thought that I was out and done, and they pulled me back in. What's that mean? Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. And so here I am, back in ministry, loving it even more than I used to. Now, not every good thing happens by surprise, of course, right? When you get pregnant, you have months and months to await and expect the arrival of that new child. And, like this situation, I saw the listing for this church. I sent my profile in. We had an interview, then we had another interview. And I want to say we had another one, but now we went to the neutral pulpit. And it took a long time, but we got there. So, sometimes good things take a while to develop. But when God calls you, you must answer. When God calls, you get pulled right in. And you got to answer the call. And Jesus goes out to this village of Samaritans. And he's going to preach and heal there just like he does any other place. But they reject him. No dice. They are not interested. The deal was that the difference between Jews and Samaritans is that the Jews think that there's the temple, the one and only temple, is in Jerusalem. And the Samaritans reject that idea. They say you can have a temple wherever you go. And so that's sort of that dividing line. Did you know the Samaritans still exist? They're still out there. Yeah, there's like one village of them left in Israel. So they go through all this, and the Samaritans say, thanks, but no thanks. Jesus says, let's go. And while they're leaving, the disciples say, hey, you want to just roast these people? We can pray to God to bring some fire down on them, on their sorry butts. And Jesus says, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? We don't have time for this. Come on. We got to get moving. And so on they go. We don't have time for revenge. We don't have time to be angry at other people. And then we go through, Luke has us go through this list of people who come to Jesus wanting to follow him, but not really being prepared to do it. There's the first guy, who Jesus says, there's no money in ministry. Foxes have holes and the birds of the air have their nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. If Jesus ever owned a house, he sold it, gave it all up, and went out on his own. He lived on handouts from others. Yes, he was a taker, not a giver. There's no money in doing this. There's no security. So beware. There's no time to bury the dead. One of the greatest social obligations of this day was to provide a good funeral for your own father. And Jesus says, we don't have time for that. I'm going to call you and you're going to go. So let's get going. There isn't even time to say goodbye. I call, you come now. Don't look back. Keep your hand on that plow, boy. Let's get going. I wonder if Jesus even said goodbye to Mary when he decided to go out on the road. Do you think he stopped by and said, I'm going to become a preacher now. We're not told. And what about you? What phone calls have you skipped? Have you not returned the call on? When have you been distracted by anger, or money, or family, or even just that desire to linger for a moment and take a look around before you leave a place? The early Christians used to call their movement, before there was such a thing as Christianity, they called it the way, like a road or a highway. And the idea was you go as far down this road as you possibly can. And there are obstacles along the way, anger and money and family. But you go around them. And you keep moving. You keep progressing with God. And God won't judge you for not being able to overcome those obstacles. You know, we all have to make our own choices in life. There's a reason I'm not a missionary in a third world country. Right? But always that invitation is there. Come, follow me. Come as far down this road to God as you can. So don't look back. Don't hesitate. Keep moving. Amen.